So it came out, I think yesterday or earlier today, that the Lakers they're looking for a veteran point guard to bring into the team. And a trade was dangled out, or they at least made the call to the Wizards for Russell Westbrook. And I believe the trade was going to be Schroeder, Kuzma, and THT. So we will start with Esteban, because I know Esteban is the Laker fan here, along with me. But Esteban, how do you feel about Russ coming to the Lakers, and do you feel like that's a good fit for what the team needs to get back into the championship?
I'm out on that trade. I don't like that trade at all. I feel like we have dudes that can get to the rim, which Russ can. And if it's Braun and AD getting to the rim and kicking out to Russell Westbrook, I don't think that solves the problem. The problem that I saw, even when AD was out and LeBron was getting to the bucket and kicking out, nobody could hit a shot. And I know that we're not going to get, the Currys of the world and the Clays of the world to, stand out on that three-point line, but I feel like that's who we have. That's somebody that we have to target. We don't have a bad team. The Lakers don't have a bad team. They have a good team, right? AD is going to be great if he doesn't get hurt, which is a big if. But I do feel like we have the point guard in, Braun. I think Westbrook can do okay with the second squad, but on that second squad, we have to have shooters, and I just don't think we have enough shooters. So I don't know how Russ would make sense. Does that make?
What do you think, Brandon?
I hate agreeing with him, but I do. Russ, he's not a good fit for the Lakers. I do like him as a point guard. I really like him as a player. I'm much higher on him than Esteban is. But the thing you have to do with him is similar to what you need to do with Simmons, and it's just surround him with shooters, right? Like, he needs 5 shooters around him, or at least 4.5. And it's not in the Lakers, right? Like, you're going to take away some of his value, him having to share the ball with LeBron. And I'm not saying they can't do it, but since LeBron's a drive and kick kind of guy, like, he likes to get to the rim, find his shooters outside, and you don't want that to be Westbrook. Now, if it's late in the game, it's kind of close, I don't mind him taking a pull-up. Because, Russ is not afraid. Russ is not afraid. Even though his percentages don't show it, that guy is super confident in that shot. He will take it every time. And so I love it. But yeah, so that's what I have.
So I'm going to disagree with you guys. And I think it's the common trend to say, like, this trade isn't going to work. But this is, hear me out and tell me if you believe this logic. So one, I think the last 2 years have proven something that a lot of people might have missed on. So this year's champion and last year's champion were really bad three-point shooting teams. So everybody is overvaluing this, we need all of these shooters, we need all of these shooters. However, if you look at the last 2 champions, both of those teams struggle shooting the ball. So I don't think it's the need for shooters that actually is going to be what takes a team over the thing. I think that's just kind of because of what we've seen with Steph and Dame, that everybody just thinks you need a lot of shooters, and that's going to be it. But those guys aren't winning championships, at least these last 2 years. It's really the teams that are big, like have a lot of length and have really good defense that are winning championships. So I believe that the Lakers already have a championship caliber team. Their issue is health. So what could Russell Westbrook bring to the team that maybe not other players can be? Russell Westbrook is one of the best regular season players of all time, right? He is somebody who has a motor, who's going to play hard every single game and going to be able to keep your team in a game. And if he has the right pieces around him, be able to help your team win on a consistent basis day in and day out. And why I think that's going to be valuable to the Lakers is going to keep LeBron and AD fresh, because they could still have a star on the floor, and we could rest LeBron. We could not make him play, 35 minutes a game and bring him into that low 30s during the regular season and ramp him up when it comes playoff time and get them really sharp. Especially with AD, we could play a different style of game, if AD's out with a guy like Russ and Montrez, I think they would crush in a pick and roll and be able to like help the team still be able to contend through the regular season. And then come playoff time, then that's when you bring it back to the LeBron and AD pick and roll and really have them kind of run the team and have Russ basically take a step back. And I think, one of the things that people say is, oh, Russ is a team killer. Like he can only play one style of game. But I think Russ has humbled himself as far as understanding where he is in his career. And if he has guys like LeBron and guys like AD around him, I think he'll understand what he needs to do. And, obviously a guy like James Harden might be tougher to relinquish the ball to because James Harden hasn't won anything, right? But a guy like LeBron, who's won 4 chips, AD, who's won a chip, he's coming to the Lakers where LA's hometown for him. I think that it could be something that's valuable to the Lakers. It's not my first choice, but if this is the best they can do because they have very limited trade assets, I don't think they're going to be able to swing a trade for a guy like Dame unless they get rid of AD, right? They're not going to be able to do it for just Talon Horton Tucker, Schroeder, a sign and trade with Schroeder and Kuzma, which you're not really losing crazy pieces to get back something that can benefit. If it's only going to take that and you still get to keep, you still are able to sign, we were talking about Alex Caruso and, bring back some guys on minimum contracts that could be those shooters, 3-and-D type players. I think Russ can really benefit the Lakers and help them actually get to, because if they were healthy this season, I think that they would have made the finals again. I don't think the Suns beat them. I think that if LeBron and AD were healthy, I think that we're looking at, Milwaukee and the Lakers. So it's not that the Lakers need a whole bunch of players. They just need health. So I think Russ can help them and keep LeBron and AD healthy just because he could play every single day and play hard. What do you guys think about that? We'll go with you first, Brandon. I don't know why. I think you muted yourself. So there you go.
I didn't mute myself. I would never try to quiet myself. So the one of the I do like the alternative way of thinking for the Lakers, right? Like it's not all doom and gloom. But the one thing I will say, even though neither team shot really well, for the Bucks and the Suns, neither of them teams shot really well in the finals or even somewhat throughout the playoffs at the 3-point line. They were considered in the regular season like solid 3-point shooting teams, right? Like they have guys that you can kick the ball out to and that they're going to be willing to shoot it. Whereas if you're already just a bad 3-point shooting team, nobody has to go out there and play. Like threes are harder to come by in the playoffs because teams know everybody wants that 3. So you want to try to take it away. So that's why the drive becomes more valuable or the mid-range becomes more valuable. But if you're a team that already can't shoot those 3s and the defense doesn't have to go out there and play you, now everybody's in the paint and there's no driving lanes. So now you're just having to try to live off of guys shooting 3s that can't shoot 3s. So that's why you say that you want people that can shoot 3s because it's just the threat of it, right? Like but
the Lakers didn't have that even when they won their chip last year, right? So that's what I'm saying.
Because KCP was a shooter, Morris was a shooter.
They still have those guys. Those guys are still there. So I mean that doesn't change, right? That same team is there. It's just Russ now is going. So they're not getting rid of those shooters that you're scared of to make this trade. They're just bringing in somebody who could play hard, play that point guard, take the ball out of LeBron's hands, be able to run a team, and keep them healthy through the regular season. Esteban, why don't you jump in and talk because how do you think Russ would fit in, knowing that he's going to just be there to take the ball out of LeBron's hands, keep him healthy for a full season?
I feel like that's cool. Like I understand the logic there. When I say like when I talk about shooters too, and especially this year, I think the mid-range game is so undervalued that when you drive and kick to that 15-footer, if you can make that shot, that's way more valuable. For me, the problem was, I saw that with like KCP showed up in the bubble for sure, but this year it was like you kicked it to him and he didn't make anything. And Kyle Kuzma, same thing, didn't make anything. And Kyle Kuzma, to me, like regressed in progression. You know what I mean? Like he played way worse than I saw him play last year. At least, they said he got better on defense, but even on the defensive end, it didn't make up for what he was doing on the offensive end for me. But you have to have guys that can knock down shots, and I don't think that we have. I mean, the guys that we have that were knocking down shots the year before were not knocking down the same shots that they had this year. So I think Russ would, sure, he would save the legs. He would come in. He would play hard. His motor is uncanny. I mean, there's nobody can question that. We're talking about like the 90-10 thing. I think Bill Simmons talked about it on his podcast, where 90% of what he does is really, really, really good, but the 10% that he does bad, it's just really bad. He doesn't make good decisions at the end of the game. His free throw shooting is not great. He tries to take the shot that'll give him momentum, but always misses that kind of shot. You know what I mean? Like he said, I'm not always, but as far as the percentage wise, he's way more confident than the percentages will say that he should be taking that shot to me. So I see it. He can save the legs for sure. I just think that to me, like Alonzo Ball would be way better than a Russell Westbrook for this team.
Yeah, and I don't think Russell should be the first choice. I think if it only takes THT, Kuzma, and a sign and trade with Schroeder, and they can't get anything better, then Russ, I think that it could fit. Another thing is Russ, on all of these occasions that we're talking about, has always been the 1 or the 2 option, right? So if he's not playing well, it's a big hit to the team because they've built their team around Russ being one of their top 2 players, if not the best player. On the Lakers, he would be the number 3 player. So if Russ isn't cooking, if Russ is like missing shots and all this kind of stuff, LeBron and AD are the 1 and 2 options that are on that team. So you can hide Russ on those days that he's playing not well, especially in the playoffs. But there are games where he's just ridiculous. You know what I mean? And to have that ability as your third option, because let's be honest, your third option is going to be streaky. Everybody's third option is a streaky player that has some flaws. With the Nets, even with them, Kyrie, his flaws, you never know if he's going to be there and be healthy, right? So, even with the Giannis's big 3, Drew Holiday wasn't scoring. He was streaky on the offensive end. So that third piece of the big 3 is always going to be the question mark. So it's still like, what question marks can you survive with, right? And we look at a guy like Schroeder, who I think was detrimental to the Lakers in the playoffs because you got absolutely nothing out of him for so many games when you needed that out of him. I don't think we'd have that with Russ. Russ's mental strength, I think, is a lot more than Schroeder's is. And I think if we had Russ in Schroeder's place this playoffs, those games where we needed another person to step up when LeBron just couldn't do it and AD was a little bit hobbled, I think that's where Russ would have really played a big role and kind of still kept the Lakers competitive instead of, dropping to the Suns like they did this postseason. So I think a lot of people are brushing it off right off the bat because they're like, oh, he's not a shooter and all this kind of stuff. I don't think people are really thinking about what he could actually bring to the team and how it could actually be beneficial. I think it would make the team better than it was last season for sure. So I'll let you guys get the last word on this topic. So I muted myself. That's why we could start with Brandon. Brandon, you could jump in.
No, like I said, man, I guess I kind of agree with the fact that, if we can't do anything else and we're only giving up those 3, sure. Because I don't think Kyle Kuzma is that. I mean, Kyle Kuzma's a whatever for me. Like we thought he was the guy and he didn't turn out to be the guy. So I'm not worried about losing him. Schroeder wasn't, he came for last year, so I'm not really that big on losing him. I like THT. I can see the hype around him. So I'd like to see him, progress. I feel like the Lakers and their problem is that they don't develop their players, right? And so with Kyle Kuzma, Ingram was good, but Ingram's, flourished on the offensive end when he left. Lonzo, we just didn't give him enough time. I just feel like they wait for that big blockbuster move, and then they try to make that blockbuster move, which, to their credit, 12 chips later they can. But I just feel like with THT, I feel like I don't want to lose that guy just because, I mean, he might be able to do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but if you could turn a second round pick into Russ, that's you've done your job. I think with.
I guess that's a win, right?
Yeah, that's a win.
Yeah.
Brandon, go ahead. You get the last word, my man.
So my only, I guess, thought or question is, right, like, if we're living in that perfect world where Russ does bring only the positives to the team and he's able to save legs and what have you, what about the only question I would have then is, what about Russ's injury history, right? Like, for these last couple of seasons, he's had some things. Like, he hasn't been as healthy as he's always been. I mean, he bounces back usually pretty quick, but like you saw this whole year with the Wizards, like, he didn't look right. He did have that one really good stretch where he looked great, but after that, he kind of, I think it was in the play-in tournament, he looked hurt, or he got hurt again. And so, I mean, the one thing he will bring is he does not quit. But he's tried to be the second to third option before. He tried it in OKC, not so much with KD. He was more like, no, I want to be the man. But when Paul George and Carmelo came, he tried to let those guys be the guys and him be more of the playmaker and setting people up. It didn't work out too well. And then for the Rockets, when he was playing with Harden, he did play off the ball. I mean, granted, when you play off the ball with Harden, or you have the ball and Harden's on your team, you're playing 4-on-5, because if Harden doesn't have the ball, it doesn't work.
Right.
And LeBron and AD will definitely work, but I don't think – I'm not a big fan of Russ off the ball. I think to get the best out of Russ, you kind of need him to have the ball. He'll do some cuts. Like, he's not going to give you a complete zero, but when you throw him, LeBron, and AD out there, and that's three guys that you don't really have to play super tight on, it just gives me some pause. Like, I see where teams can load up and play defense against them, right? Like, it's not
I agree, but
combo.
I think that LeBron's transitioning to being more of a shooter than that guy that's going to just take the ball down to the post, right? So I think that Russ, although you're right, he's had some dings here and there, I don't think it's going to be the workload that he's had. This is good. If he comes to the Lakers, it's going to be the best team that he's ever had since that OKC team when he had, when they took that team to the finals, right? So, and it's not like they weren't performing with that team. They were going to the Western Conference Finals. They made it to the championship, 1 year. So they were performing. But when you bring up Paul George and Carmelo, that's not AD and LeBron. You know what I mean? So, like, having that big three versus the PG big three, there's something to be said about a guy like LeBron, a guy like AD, who I think are better finishers. AD, you got somebody that could finish at the hoop consistently. So I mean, I'm not saying it's the ideal situation, because I do think there's better fits out there at point guard for the Lakers. But I think a lot of people are just like poo-pooing this idea and just being like, this will never work, without really understanding what Russ would be asked to do and how he can actually benefit. So I'm just higher on the trade than I think other people, especially when you're talking about what you have to give up for it. But, we'll see. I don't know if it's definitely going to happen, but definitely I think it'll be fun to see what does happen, because something's going to happen, right? We think Ben Simmons is moving, Dame's moving, Russ is moving, Lakers are going to do something. So it's going to be a fun offseason. And these two will be right here talking about it on So Real Sports Talk.